Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another edition of Track Walk in MX Simulator, where today I'm going to be playing one of the most challenging Supercross tracks in this game. And it's a OG track, and I'll explain why it's so tiny in just a second, but it's called So You Think You Know SX by Shadow, who, at least in my honest opinion, is a pretty legendary track maker in MX Simulator. And he made this track at the very tail end of 2011, and it was released, I think, a month, if I'm not mistaken, after the 450s were introduced to the game. Before that, from 2008 until the late 2011, it was only 250Fs. That's why I chose to ride a 250Fs today, because I feel like this track must have been built while 250Fs were like the only thing. And to my knowledge about this track, everybody says it's 1-to-1 scale, but I think it might be smaller than that. But it's definitely supposed to be like a really challenging small SX track where you really have to be precise when it comes to hitting lines and rhythm sections and stuff like that. I mean, all the jumps are very pointy and the rhythms are hard to nail and stuff like that. Once you get the track down, it's kind of fun actually, but it's definitely a challenge and not for the faint of raging, if you will. If you're watching this video right now and you're like, oh, I could take that track on, go ahead, try it out, tell me what you think. Because you'll look at it and be like, oh, it's pretty simple, and then you'll start riding it and be like, holy crap, like the jumps are pointy and it's hard to time stuff, and yeah, it's not easy. And this track is pretty fun to race against people with. I've definitely had many experiences. Hasn't been for a while, but I would say like back in 2012, 2013, at least once or twice a year, someone would put this track on a server and be like, all right, let's meet up, let's try to race this thing again. And it'd always be just interesting because it's a hard track. Like I'm doing all right on it, honestly, for not falling as much as I should be. But yeah, and I don't know what inspired me to have the wild hair up my ass today to do this as a track walk. Probably because it's been a while since I've done like a legendary OG type track, and this is definitely one. Like, look at this corner. Like, this is supposed to turn and then drop down right there, and then the finish line jump. It's probably the biggest jump on the track, to be honest with you. And then finally I crash after a whole lap. I tip over in a corner and crash. It's part of the reason why I just absolutely love the new snap shot, where they introduced the ability to drag bar in the game, which is great for some people, but then others who slide out every so often, you bang your head more often because the collision files on your bars are a lot different than they used to be. So I'm not a big fan of it, but you know, everybody wanted to drag bar because you already weren't going fast enough through the corners anyway, unrealistically. So why not introduce something that'll make it so that you can just drag bar in the corners, you know, whatever. But you can see, kind of starting to pick it up a little bit. Getting a little bit of a flow down. It's all about, like I said, it's all about timing, which is what Supercross is supposed to be. A lot of the modern day MX Simulator Supercross tracks are built very, very big, and it's more about just, you know, having good flow and stuff like that rather than good timing and good speed in the corners and stuff like that. It's literally just, you know, how much can you flow the track together. And so that's what I thought was always unique about a track like this, is that it's so hard and so challenging that really like the really good players are the ones that are able to figure out the lines and like how much speed they need to attack each section with and stuff like that. And I'm by no means saying I'm a really good player or that I'm the best player or anything like that, but I'm just trying to point out that when we raced it, all the hot lap heroes would have a really tough time adapting to this track, and all the people that in my opinion were really good at the game at the time would just be like, ah, yeah, no problem, and they would start, you know, busting laps together. So it's kind of one of my reasons why I really like this track, I would say. And because like it's got so many like different options for lines and rhythms and stuff like that. Each section has like a unique feel to it, or like a split section. Like this section up here, I went inside last time, but you could go outside and like triple in off this thing and triple here and then quad into the corner. And like if you're not accustomed to nailing quads at any point during your sim playing days, try this track out because you'll be able to bust fives out and stuff like that because everything's so small. I'm gonna try to go to the outside here, which is kind of useless. It's all right, but it's a little bit harder to get to. And then even on a 250F, like everything first gear pretty much, and keep sliding down that corner. That's another thing that has changed about tracks over the years, is that when JLV used to build the Supercross tracks back in like 2000 and from 2011 to 2013, I believe was the last year he built the tracks for the championship series. He would make the tracks slicker, so you had to be really good with throttle control, and it was a lot harder to do big lines because the traction wouldn't allow you to just like rip roar a 5 out of a corner or something like that, because you had to actually take your time in the corners and stuff like that. And a lot of really good players today were very unhappy when Race Factory took over building the Supercross tracks because they liked the JLV tracks so much and they were so quick on them, and they had spent their entire life devoted to doing well on those tracks. And all those players today now complain out the fucking ass when a track is too slippery. And JLVs were a lot worse than what they are today, that's for sure, when it comes to traction. I can't speak for whether JLV's tracks were better than what Race Factory is putting out now, although in my opinion, I think they are. I would say that they're just, you know, different strokes for different folks. And JLV did great when he was running it. He was also kind of catering to a different audience at the time. The pro scene in Race Factory Gaming has gotten much more competitive and challenging over the years. So even as kind of tricky as they try to make the tracks these days, pretty much everybody is still able to figure out how to do all the big lines and do them every lap and do 20 laps without crashing. So Race Factory tries to make them challenging so that the real pros have a challenge, and then a lot of amateur riders tend to complain because the tracks are too challenging, although they are built more specifically for the pros. But I digress about that situation. I was just kind of pointing out how this traction is very, very slippery, and that I think is a product of all the tracks back in 2010, 11, and such like that. Was they're trying to cater to slipperier traction, and therefore making it more difficult to do gnarly big lines and stuff like that. But I still like it. I mean, I didn't really have a major problem with JLV's tracks. In fact, my best ever Supercross finish in pro competition was on a JLV track. I got 5th at Salt Lake City in 2013, and I mean, I didn't mind his tracks. I was happy when they changed because I did really well on a lot of Checkers off-season tracks that he would do. And then I proceeded to basically shit the bed on the tracks that they built in 2014. So wasn't really like it did me any favors to have those tracks built. I pretty much did worse on those than I did on JLV tracks. But yeah, I don't really have a preference about it, I guess. You know, they're both good for their times. And if you play an old track, you're always going to run into the problem of it being probably too small because everything was on 250Fs, and probably too slippery because everybody was just making tracks that were slipperier as a product of that time, like this particular track. And I wouldn't even really consider the this track like that old. There are much more OG tracks. I actually had someone recommend on the channel for me to play a track called Scrubber Dead by, I think that was made by Cobra. I already talked about that this track was made by Shadow, and Shadow always made one-to-one scaled tracks, or at least smaller scaled tracks. And Cobra, if I'm right in that he made Scrubber Dead, was always just making like unique large tracks. So he was like kind of almost the opposite of Shadow, but they were both good track makers for their time and both unique. And I don't see Cobra around that often, but Shadow made a track, I want to say a year ago or so, and that was the last we saw of him. I always get Shadow and Stay Down confused for some reason, but they're both, again, very good track makers, so that's probably why I'll just play their tracks and be like, oh, this must be one of them because they're a good track. Yeah, Shadow, I think Shadow was more notorious, I would say, for having really good looking environments for their time. Like obviously this isn't like a stellar environment, but if you see some of the other tracks that were available in 2010, you'll probably be like, holy crap, like this is actually, it looks really good for 2010, 2011 era. And then, you know, other track creators I think were more focused on just building a good solid track, while Shadow I think was pretty equal in putting time into the track and its playability as he was into the environment looking solid, which is fine. I think a lot of people still do that today. There's more like specialty people honestly today where like Shadow would create this track and the environment, not the stadium because the stadium's JLVs, but some of his other tracks would be like completely brand new environments and they're crazy good, and you know, would also do a good track. But nowadays it's like some people either only worry about the environment and do environments for like track teams or something like that, or only build tracks and then someone send their track to someone else to do environments, etc., etc. It's not as bad as I make it sound, but that is more common today to have people just do specialty stuff. And you know, obviously I would say that the older generation of sim community members and stuff like that were much more community members, and I use that term in the way of saying we don't really have much of a community feel going on around sim these days. It's more of like I made this content, pay me for it, you fucks. Whereas everybody back then was like, I made this content, who wants to use my decals, who wants to use my environment to build a track, who wants to play this track with me, blah 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 blah. I'm just the grumpy old man who's like, get off my lawn, you kids that are ruining sim. But to the point of this track, I mean, it's challenging, but like I'm trying to show with this, it's once you get it down, you can pick up a flow a little bit, and then some of the sections feel nice. Like when you actually get a section clean, like I've gotten a few of the sections really, really good in the past couple laps. That just feels like so nice on a track like this, because it is hard to do and to actually execute really well. I'm gonna go down here. Oh, or I'm not. Thought I was going to. You know, it's nice in one aspect to be a hot lap hero and get a quality lap time on a fairly easy Supercross track. It's another thing to actually, you know, try to do good laps on a difficult track like this and connect lines and stuff like that. Like, just got the rhythm section before that, probably the cleanest I'll ever get it. But I mean, I'm looking at it straight on. Look at how steep all those jumps are, and it works too. Like, it's not like it pitches you all funky or anything like that. He has really, really solid jump shapes on this track, and yeah, I mean, it's just a fun track to play, and it's fun for me at least in the aspect that I get to go back and still play old tracks like this and kind of relive the fun days that I would have. But to anybody that, you know, is watching my videos now that might be fairly new to sim, I would always recommend going back and playing an old track like this, whether you like this track or whether you don't want to deal with the slippery traction or anything like that. But just to go back and play the old tracks to see where sim came from. What you see as a final product of MX Simulator right now, it's not final. It's never been final. It's kind of always been in beta, where he's been constantly updating it and stuff like that. Is way different. It's miles different from when I started playing the game, for one, with the new suspension changes and added things to your rider stability settings and stuff like that. It's a completely different game than when I picked it up, for one. But it's like almost like a completely different physics engine, if you will, than what this game was like when it started. Like if you, I can't think of like how you would do it, but if you were able to play on one of the older snapshots and erase some of your newer game files and try to play the game on, you know, just like some of the physics settings that were around back then with no rider fall offs and stuff like that, you would see just how far this game has come. And it's incredible that it looks this good now, it plays this good now, and it was a long time coming and all that business for sure, but still, I can't think of any other game that has changed so much from like basically its release. And it, like everybody keeps asking, or did ask for a while, is JLV going to make an MX Simulator 2? So that, you know, it's like the second installation of the game and then we all get to play it and yada yada this. And in my opinion, I don't think he's ever going to, because if he was, he would have already done it, because he's pretty much reinvented the game a few times, I would say, with some of the snapshot updates that he's given out. And this game has always been a hobby for him. It's not his life. He actually has you know, a job. So unless he wants to, you know, in his retirement from his job, because he's already, I believe, in his late 40s now, you know, start from the ground up, maybe get a development team and then create another MX Simulator with a different engine, because he's always said that he wish he didn't use, I think it's, you know, it's like the OpenGL 3D Max, something like that, engine that he used, and it really hard-coded him into a lot of problems with the game that he's talked about before. So if he could start over with a new engine and a different, you know, like an actual development team, because he did it all from scratch by himself, I think it'd be incredible what he could create. But in my opinion, like I said, I just don't know if it's ever going to happen, because if it was going to, I think it already would have happened. This game is pretty close to 10 years old now in terms of like the first beta launches of it to the, you know, where we are exactly today, which is astonishing. And people always ask questions on the channel of like, why does this game look like it's fucking Minecraft or something like that? Well, that's because this game is 5 years older than Minecraft, and it still looks this good, you know, or not this good, but it still plays this good, or what, you know, whatever. And I'm just basically sucking MX Simulator's dick right now, but I'm so glad that I was able to find this community and play tracks like this, and just never-ending tracks and fun and people to meet, and just awesome. So I guess I'm gonna wrap up the video after the end of this lap, but I mean, I hope you guys liked this video, because I was really tentative to even try to do it, because I knew it was gonna be another one of those tracks that was kind of, the gameplay would have been very unentertaining, I guess, because it's so slow and not big whips and all the, you know, things that people want to play sim for these days, I feel like. But it was just kind of a little flashback into the past, and plus, I know this video is gonna come out a day after when it's supposed to come out, which would have been Thursday, but it's going to come out on Friday anyway, so it's kind of a flashback Friday video anyway, like a flashback Friday track walk, if you will. So why not? I'll look at how clean I got that section. See if I can get this section clean. Nice. Oh, a little OJ here. Land it. Nice. Trying to cut down in the corner and triple into the whoops here, but should have just doubled in and then launched into him. Those whoops are gnarly big. Then you get this triple, and then you're supposed to quad this guy. Just quad up into this little corner here. Jump here, and let's see if I can jump all the way to that second tabletop. There we go. Okay, it's like I'm actually kind of connecting the lines a little bit. It's fun. And then come out of this corner. And right into the finish line pole. Gunk. Alright. Well, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please bung it a like. Always super helpful if you guys like our videos. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions or concerns, we always try to answer them as fast as we can. But thank you guys for watching episode number 107, I believe, of Track Walk in MX Simulator on So You Think You Know SX Round 1 by Shadow. Kellen Brower, I'm going to say so long for now.